Hey there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be hailing from. This is Red Hat Enterprise Linux Presents, and I'm one of your hosts, Eric the IT Guy Hendricks. And today we are going to be talking about the registration experience and all the amazing things that are coming your way. But it wouldn't be Red Hat Enterprise Linux Presents without my esteemed co-host, Mr. Brian Smith himself. Hey, Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Eric?
Before the show, I was getting about 17 meg down on a 2 gig connection. So we'll see how this goes. It may be up to you and our guests to carry the show forward if I
So,
tend to fall off, but
sounds good. Sounds
we'll
good.
we'll just we'll see what happens. With that being said, we're going to talk about registration experience today. We're going to be talking about how to make use of the wonderful, amazing REL subscription, what the subscription is about, and some of the tools that are available or will be available in their near future to make that all part of the reality. That sense didn't make any sense, but we're just going to move on. But I can think of no one better than returning guest Mr. Rich Jerrido to come in and talk about Subscription Manager. Rich, how's it going, man?
It's going pretty well. It's another beautiful day in Red Hat, making subscriptions awesome and making it easy for our customers and partners to use our stuff.
It's
That's what I
awesome.
love to hear.
So, Rich, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background here at Red Hat? Like, how long have you been at Red Hat, and what kind of roles have you been in since you've been here?
All right, so let's see. I've been at Red Hat in about a month. It'll be 12 years. I've been in a number of roles at Red Hat. I came on board in 2010 as a solutions architect in Northeast Commercial, basically doing pre-sales engineering for that region, helping folks who solve business problems using Red Hat technologies. Had a big specialty in satellite, which kind of kickstarted my career inside of Red Hat. So I worked on REL and satellite as a solutions architect for about 4 years or so. I came on board to the business unit side of the house as the technical marketing manager in 2014, basically covering the TMM role for satellite for a couple years, moved over to product management, doing product management for satellite for a couple of years. And then pursuant to this conversation, Red Hat actually stood up a team of product managers and engineers to build a unified experience around subscription management. And that's the team I've been working on since about 2019 or so. So it's been, 3 years of me and my team working to make all parts of subscription management seamless and simple. We like to say we want to make it subscription non-management. That's our goal at the end of the day. So that's kind of my journey through Red Hat. So I, card carrying RHCA. I still know how to use a console window, even though I'm a paper pushing bureaucrat nowadays. But that's who I am.
Well, paperwork aside, we're really excited to have you back. I think this is your second time on the show, so glad to have you back. So you alluded to the fact that subscriptions might be difficult to use.
Yeah, I mean, so okay, that was like such a layup comment, right? But at the end of the day, like our Red Hat subscriptions and empower our operators of Red Hat technology to do various things, whether it's installing Red Hat Enterprise Linux bits, it's deploying an OpenShift cluster, it's maybe deploying one of our offerings out of the middleware portfolio. There were a number of places where getting up and running with Red Hat technologies were hampered by the fact that using the subscriptions, configuring the subscriptions, and kind of getting through the registration process was painful. In fact, one of the capstone moments in our team's development was in Summit of 2019. We actually reached out to our customers at Summit, like we literally tackled some of them in the Summit UXD booth, and we asked them, we're like, "Tell me how you feel about subscription management." They're like, "Oh, we'll tell you, all right." And they gave us a lot of feedback. And, the best summary of the feedback that we got from those customers was the process of managing subscriptions took too much time and it was punitive when you got it wrong, right? And there's a whole bunch of like areas where you can go really deep on either of those topics. But basically, those were the two major things. Like, hey, we're spending too much time managing your subscriptions. And that's time I could be spending doing things that are valuable and impactful for my business. And then when we get it wrong, we're unable to do things like if we auto attach the wrong subscription, then I don't have access to the repository I need to build a server, and my build pipeline breaks down, right? That's weird. It's like a unforced error when you really think about it from the perspective of what we want our desired state to be. So, taking that as our starting point, getting that feedback from our customers, and the amount of time the average customer was spending doing subscription management was somewhere between a sixth and a quarter of an FTE was spending that much time managing subscription tools. So we got asked to make that go away, right? And we built a number of solutions and technologies in support of making subscription management easy and seamless. But in order to do that, we had to kind of sit down and evaluate kind of like, what's the core problem we're attempting to solve, and who are we attempting to solve that problem for? So the first thing that we did was we pulled the team together. We said, let's define some core principles, right? We have multiple product managers working on the team. We have multiple engineering managers and lots of engineers who work with us. And one of the things that we wanted to lay down was like, what are the rules, right? That way, if we're looking at doing work or not doing work, we kind of got to have a code, right? Like Omar Little from The Wire, a man must have a code. So we wrote down about 7 or 8 major rules that we follow, but there's probably 3 that's incredibly important to us. Our first rule is the people who use our technology shouldn't need to have a PhD in subscription management to understand our stuff, right? Like, the company pays you to go do the things that they need for the business, right? They pay you to be an expert in CI/CD or deployment pipelines or monitoring stacks. They don't pay you to master Red Hat subs. So let's make it so that you don't have to have a PhD. The second thing that we looked at was we shouldn't burden people specifically with the purpose of doing subscription management, right? Like, spreadsheet calculation math is a thing that some customers do. We would rather you not do it, which kind of goes to our kind of last big rule, which is it's Red Hat's responsibility to measure the usage of Red Hat technology, right? And taking those 3 rules, we have a few more that we kind of go by, but those are kind of our 3 big ones. We started peeling apart, the layers of the subscription management experience. And I know in chat, someone's already making a Shrek reference. So there's my layered Shrek reference for the day. Subscription management has onions, I guess we'll say it that way, right? But when we started pulling back the tooling, we decided to look at it and we said, our subscription management tooling was becoming complicated because it's attempting to serve 2 separate personas at the same time, right? We were attempting to solve the problem of, well, yes, I want to make it easy for operators to connect their systems and deploy technology with the exact same tool that we were trying to solve the procurement personas requirement to, let's count how much of the software that is in use so that we can track it and maybe buy more, buy less, or what have you. So functionally, we said, let's divorce those 2 personas into 2 separate sets of tools. And that's basically the place from where we started building simple content access, and we started building Subscription Watch, right? Those 2 tools are intended for 2 separate personas, but they're intended to be used together. So an operator should not need to know at 3 o'clock in the morning, like, I need to install RH0003 from pool ID, whatever the long UUID is. They don't need to know that. They shouldn't need to know that. Sorry, my headphones went to jump off my head. But they do need to know, I need to build a RHEL 7 server that happens to have this particular package profile to support that workload. So let's make it so that they don't have to be experts on subscriptions there. But then for the procurement folks, there's always going to be the question of, well, how much of this stuff are we using? Where are we using it? And is it above or below, what we've actually purchased from Red Hat? So those are the kind of the 2 places where we really started peeling apart the experience. And that directly led to the creation of Simple Content Access and Subscription Watch. And both of those utilities been around for a while, right? We've released Simple Content Access originally in Satellite 6.3 as a limited release. It became generally available in Satellite 6.5. So, it's been around for a while. Subscription Watch also debuted in 2019. And we started rolling out Simple Content Access to our hosted customers, our directly connected customers in 2021. So that's kind of like the recap of where we came from. right? Kind of what's on the truck today. There's a whole bunch of new stuff we're going to deliver in the future, but I just kind of want to give it a background on that, and I'll pass it back to you guys for any other questions.
Yeah,
Rich,
that's great.
I was just
I
going to
mean,
say,
way back. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, go ahead, Eric. Go ahead, Eric.
Okay. So, I mean, way back in the day when I was just getting started as a sysadmin, and I feel like an idiot because I just blanked on the name of the portal, but before we had Access.Red Hat and before we had some of these other tools, the customer portal was even worse than. That's not fair to say. It was tough to navigate. Let's put it that way. And like you said, you very much needed to take a PhD level course in managing your systems, and heaven forbid you register the wrong system with the wrong pool ID, and then you're not getting any of the content that you expect to be there. It was very painful. And now we've moved into Access.Red Hat, and now now your team and your engineers and our friends over at the Insights team have worked very, very closely together to bring some of these new tools to bear. And I got to tell you, past Eric would be insanely jealous as to how much easier it is today to manage subscriptions than it was 10 years ago. And that's only accelerated since, 2019?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a journey, right? And I think the reality is just that, like, from time to time, you have to, like, look at the big picture and be like, have we made a bunch of technical decisions in succession? Because technical decisions in succession do not equal a strategy. And sometimes you need to take a step back and say, what's our actual strategy? And that's why those core principles are so important for us, right? Like, it enables us to dispassionately look at the big picture. And also those core principles allow us to change certain parts of the implementation dependent upon the product. Right. So that's the thing that we have to, keep in mind, is that the subscription experience for RHEL started at a different place than the subscription experience for Ansible or the subscription experience for OpenShift. So how do you unify them so that they look like they all came from the same company? You kind of got to have some rules of the road. And in the case of OpenShift was incredibly hard for us to build a really good subscription experience for. Because OpenShift, its very nature as a flexible container platform that people can deploy workloads on, makes it hard to count. It makes it hard to track, right? And on top of that, there was a major technology stack change between OpenShift 3 and OpenShift 4, right? But we've been able to pull all of those into a unified subscription experience that makes sense consistently within OpenShift, as well as makes sense in comparison to the Red Hat Enterprise Linux experience as well.
So Rich, you had mentioned a couple of things before: simple content access and subscription watch. Can you just provide like a high-level overview of what those are for any viewers who haven't heard of these before?
Yeah, so simple content access, we'll just kind of start there, right? It is the technology that enables an operator to simply connect the product, like RHEL, register a system, enable the repos. You don't have to know anything about subscriptions. Obviously, you got to buy the right ones, but from an operational perspective, you connect the system and then you enable whatever repositories are needed by whatever product that you have a valid subscription for. You don't have to worry about pool IDs. You don't have to worry about any setup. Simple subscription watch, which is kind of the brother sister feature, right? They're like yin yang, peanut butter jelly, whatever useful combination of two things that you like. Subscription watch makes simple content access powerful at scale, right? Because now I have a utility that's run by Red Hat. So hosted capability. It's at console.redhat.com, along with a lot of our other new operational experiences like Insights. I now have the ability to log into a Red Hat tool, see my usage of Red Hat products, and see the usage of those Red Hat products over time. So we're sampling your inventory every 24 hours or so for most products. And we're stamping out, hey, today you used 22 sockets of RHEL. Tomorrow you used 28 sockets of RHEL. And then we'll show that in comparison to, oh, you've purchased 50 sockets of RHEL. So that gives you the ability from a historical perspective. You can look back in the past and see, a month ago, how much of this stuff were we using? That was never a capability that you ever had with a Red Hat technology. It also gives you the ability that if you can see your past trend line, you can make educated guesses as to where you're going to be in the future. So, you can get ahead of maybe a potential future purchase. You call up your sales guy or, sales gal and be like, hey, it looks like we're going up and to the right. By the time we get to like November, we might need an additional 50 subs instead of having to either, poll your data center or go, on some kind of discovery process or just tracking the stuff in spreadsheets, right? Which again goes back to that core principle of ours. It's Red Hat's responsibility to count Red Hat technologies. And now we give you a tool that does that for you. And that tool works both for our connected customers, and then we have some capabilities that can work with customers who are a little bit more sensitive about sharing data.
So when we talk about, we've talked about a couple of different personas, and most of our audience are more the technical leaning. So looking to our technical audience, what is the ideal state for this effort? Be it your teams, the new tools. If I am just getting started with a brand new system or a brand new subscription, what is the ideal state for me as a systems administrator?
So the ideal state for you as a systems administrator is that it should take exactly one command to connect your system to Red Hat, period, right? Whether you choose to register with a username and password, which is fairly common for interactive workflows, or whether you choose to register with an activation key, it should take, actually, I would say it should take no more than one command to register a system to Red Hat. And I say that because we do have some capabilities today where we can actually do automatic fleet level registration of systems, such as in the public cloud, which in that case, you just don't even have to register the system. We register it for you. So, in the past, you would have to do things like subscription manager register, subscription manager, attach -- pool in a long pool ID. Like, you don't have to do that anymore, right? And not only do we want to make it a singular command, we also want to unify that for both of the experiences that we have, right? Like today, if you want to take advantage, generally, if you want to take advantage of connecting and getting access to repositories, you use subscription manager, right? And if you want to connect to the Insight services, you generally use the Insights client command. Why? We should only have one command, right? And that one command should do both. So in conjunction with the work that I'm doing on the subscription management side, I work with my counterpart, Christian, who's the product manager for the Insights client tool. And we've been working together towards a unified experience for getting systems connected at Red Hat. And you may have seen it in RHEL 8 or RHEL 9. We do have a new client tool called RHC. And that RHC tool is the beginning of the unification of the registration experience, so that if you register to Red Hat, you can get access to all your content stuff that you would historically get through Subscription Manager, as well as you would get connected to the value-add and insight services, because those services enable you to do all kinds of great operational excellence stuff that makes it easier to manage RHEL at scale in large environments.
Very cool. So in the past, we've had the customer portal at access.redhat.com, right? And it seems like lately a lot of this stuff is moving over to console.redhat.com. Can you talk a little bit about why are we moving stuff? What can you do in both places now, and kind of where are we going with all of this in the future?
Yeah, so a lot of the subscription capabilities that are in access.redhat.com are in the middle of making a journey over to console.redhat.com. And that's for a couple of reasons, right? The first reason is that console.redhat.com gives us the ability to integrate with all of the other new applications. Right, so you have the Insights family of applications, which is a broad suite, right? It isn't just one thing. There's Advisor, there's the vulnerability app, there's the patch app, there's compliance, there's Drift, there's resource optimization. I'm probably missing a couple, and my Insights PMs will pluck me on the side because I probably forgot their app. But there's a ton of Insights capabilities available on that platform. That same hybrid cloud console is where you'll find things like the OpenShift Cluster Manager, where you'll find Image Builder, right? So that platform is the one-stop shop. If I'm an operator, that's where we're going. So it didn't make a lot of sense to continue to have subscriptions over here, but everything else live in console. Additionally, a lot of access.redhat.com's workflows were built around entitlement management. We've already articulated why our entitlement management was not a great thing that we wanted to proliferate to our customers. So to move away from entitlement management, as well as basically put all the capabilities in the same location. We're transitioning those experiences from access.redhat.com to console. And for certain classes of Red Hat customers, we've already accomplished that. So for instance, our satellite customers can actually connected satellite customers specifically can generate their satellite manifests at console.redhat.com. They can upload their satellite inventory to console.redhat.com, and we can track that in SubscriptionWatch. And outside of maybe some corner cases, it's unlikely that a connected satellite customer even needs to use access.redhat.com. No, for some of our other customers are disconnected subscription management customers, like our disconnected satellite customers. They'll still need to use access.redhat.com. We haven't moved those functionalities yet. So it is a multi-step process that we're working through. But it's important that we basically we're building up the new capability in console.first, bring it up to a level of parity, and then we'll transition folks over there.
Makes sense. So I guess just a follow-up question. So if I'm a system admin and I've kind of been doing just this, the standard method of subscription management over the last few years, is there anything I need to do right now or anything I need to be worried about?
So there's a couple of things that you might want to consider changing. Okay. So if you're a sysadmin and you've been, got your workflows and they all work and they work well, the first thing I would consider you doing is consider enabling simple content access. Okay. So for our existing customers, and I'll actually take a step back here, simple content access fundamentally changes the way Red Hat subscription tools behave, right? You no longer attach subscriptions to systems. Now, one of the things that we had to be very cautious about is I have to deliver two separate experiences using the same set of tools. And while Subscription Manager isn't an API in the strictest sense, we do know there are folks out there who have workflows built around Subscription Manager workflows. So we made the decision that we weren't going to force an existing account to use simple content access. We'd allow you to go elect to turn that on when it made sense for you. Because some of your workflows may need to change. Like some of our customers will do things like check the return codes after running like Subscription Manager auto attach to make sure that a subscription got attached. Well, when you turn on simple content access, we may return a different return code. We didn't want to break your automation. So if you're an existing customer, you might not have simple content access turned on. So I would suggest, taking a look at the simple content access docs. It has a few places in there where it notes out, hey, if you are doing X, you should now do Y, and turn on that capability if you haven't already. Now, in the near future, we are going to default new accounts, newly created accounts will default to having simple content enabled out of the box because we don't have any history there with regards to, workflows and, breaking folks' workflows. So that's the first thing I would recommend is if you haven't enabled simple content access, go ahead and enable it. Read the docs. There may need to be some operational changes, but they're not huge, right? But, just read the docs because again, the utilities are going to behave in different ways. The second thing I would recommend would be after enabling, just any time. It doesn't have to be before or after. Go visit SubscriptionWatch, right? And there's a couple reasons why we want you to do that. One, because if you're a connected customer, first time you visit SubscriptionWatch, if it hasn't been enabled already, we're going to ask you, hey, looks like it's your first time here. Do you want us to start calculating usage of your products? And you select yes, and then we'll start tallying up your information. For a connected customer, so you're registering your systems directly to our portal, there's nothing else you need to do other than visiting SubscriptionWatch once, right? There's no additional, hey, I have to enable a plugin, I have to install a new package. There's none of that. All of your inventory that's already in access.redhat.com, we just ship it over into SubscriptionWatch for you. We do that automatically, right? So again, it goes back to that core principle of ours, like we shouldn't burden you with extra work for subscription management. That's our job. We'll ship that inventory over. If you are a satellite customer may has to explicitly elect to send inventory to SubscriptionWatch. That's something that's disabled by default in existing satellite servers that were installed prior to Satellite 6.9. So if you're a satellite user and you want to take advantage of Subscription Watch, you need to visit Subscription Watch once, as well as possibly configure the inventory uploader.
So a couple of months ago, in fact, when we first agreed to do this episode, I went out and switched my lab account to Simple Content. And even spinning up new virtual machines here in my home lab, I even ran across a couple of things where basically the operating system said that, oh, you don't have to do that. You're set up for Simple Content. It's like, oh my gosh, this is so much easier.
Yeah, so a great example there is if you actually try to attach a subscription, we'll return you back an error message telling you like, no, you don't need to do this anymore. And again, that's one of the reasons why we recommend like go read the docs, right? Because if you were running that in a script, right, we're now maybe a script or a cron job or something like that, we're now throwing output on standard error that, that may now get fired off as an email or end up in the log file. And you're gonna be like, well, why is it saying that? Well, it's because you enabled Simple Content. I'll give 2 shameless plugs here for Simple Content. Other than the fact that like you never have to attach subscriptions, like if that's not valuable enough, here's 2 other really good reasons. We did some testing. The satellite team did some testing with Simple Content Access from the performance perspective. They actually pulled out, we did a satellite 6.8 at the time because that's what was current. We loaded up that satellite 6.8 with 50,000 hosts to represent a particularly large RHEL environment. We did some performance testing to measure the registration time. Like how long does it take to register a system when using Simple Content compared to attaching entitlements? And obviously your mileage may vary, your servers are different, your virtualization environment may be different. But in the testing that we did, we noticed about a 10x improvement in registration time when Simple Content Access is turned on, which kind of makes sense, right? You don't have to worry about attaching entitlements and doing all of that stuff at registration time. So that's like, dude, that's awesome, especially if you're doing any kind of like CI/CD pipelines when you're bringing up systems and tearing them down really quickly. That extra 10, 15 seconds or so is time to value that you're now getting basically for free. The second thing that I would recommend as a really, really great value of Simple Content Access is it simplifies the renewal process, right? Historically, when you have a Red Hat renewal, you would have to wait for my new subscriptions to go active, and then I have to go attach subscriptions to all the systems so that I may restore access to the content repositories which they previously had access to, which is kind of a crazy workflow when you think about it. My ideal state, like my visionary state is, it's like a magazine subscription, right? Like if I get a subscription to like Time magazine, and 60 days before that subscription expires, they send me a thing in my email that says, would you like to renew for another year? And I say, yeah. And I pay them their money. The magazines just keep showing up, right? And that's how it works for a print publication. Let's make that work for the Red Hat experience as well. Simple Content makes that possible, right? So you renew your subscriptions. They're in the system at 12 a.m. Eastern when they go active, which could be a problem for some customers, right? Subscriptions go active in Eastern time, and many of our customers aren't in Eastern time. So sometimes that expiry even happens in the middle of the night, which, just crap. It's not fair. So when you have Simple Content Access turned on, when your old subscriptions expiring and new ones light up, there's nothing you have to go do on a per system basis. If you're a connected customer. If you're a satellite customer, you may need to import those subscriptions in the new subscription manifest, but that's all you have to do. Right. So, other than hey, we made things more simpler, those are 2 real, hard hitting use cases where, we've improved the customer experience. You got CI/CD, you're tearing things up and, bringing things up, tearing them down real quickly, turn on SCA. If you, don't like the sucky renewal experience, turn on SCA. Right. And I mean, that's the direction that we're going with the subscription tools anyway. Like, so like in the future, it's not this year, but at some point in the future, I can't say date specifically, we are going to move to a place where, Simple Content Access is the only operating model that we allow. Right? We're in the transition state where we allow you to switch back and forth between the 2. And in fact, if you find out that Simple Content Access isn't working for you, feel more than free to log a case with that feedback. And actually, when you disable Simple Content Access, in the customer portal, we actually pop up a little quick survey. It's like 3-4 questions that just ask you like, hey, what didn't work out for you? Let us know, because we're at this point where some content access does have a lot of maturity behind it. But there's also, maybe some places where you have use cases that we aren't fully versed on, and that's your opportunity to give us that feedback.
Very cool. So you'd mentioned disconnected customers a couple of times. Like, is there anything else special that disconnected customers need to keep in mind as part of all these different experiences you've been talking about?
Oh yeah, disconnected introduces a whole different lens to a lot of the subscription work. Right. But disconnected customers are real people too, and we do care about them. So we just have to build different experiences that are still semi-consistent, right? Now, the first thing we looked at when we looked at our disconnected customers was being disconnected isn't necessarily a binary yes or no thing, right? There are some customers who are disconnected for very different reasons, right? And there's a continuum, right? Some customers are okay with sharing some data, but they want to control the frequency at which that data is shared, right? So that's where the satellite inventory plugin is actually really useful, because it has the ability to take its inventory and dump it to disk. And you can read that inventory payload and you can check it out, and then you can upload it asynchronously. It doesn't have to be on a daily basis. So for those customers, they can still take advantage of things like Subscription Watch, but obviously the accuracy of the data wouldn't be at a daily granularity. It'll be at the granularity at which they upload it. We also realize that we do have customers, and many of our defense customers, 3-letter agencies, like, it literally requires an act of Congress for them to share data with us. They're never going to share that data. So what we looked at for them, and it's actually, we introduced some new tools in our portfolio for those disconnected customers, and I'll talk about some of the other weird use cases we got in a second. But for our disconnected customers, we do have a new tool. It's called Red Hat Discovery. We actually introduced that tool a couple months ago. And the purpose of Red Hat Discovery is to basically be that flashlight to go look through your data center and find Red Hat products. And that data never leaves the building unless you absolutely want it to, right? So for our disconnected customers, they still have satellite. Satellite is a great inventory source of Red Hat products. But we also have new on-premise tools that can actually go and find Red Hat products that may not be under management and let you know where they are, what products are installed, how big they are, what have you. So, for those use cases, and again, we kind of look at all of them as a continuum, right? You can use any of these tools. A connected customer could go use Discovery if they wanted to, right? Let's say they're just like, hey, I had some sysadmins that went rogue in our environment. They maybe stood up some systems I don't know about, or like maybe there's a merger and acquisition and we have to go figure out what all that other, company or other team has out there. We now have tooling that can go and do that. Right. And the thing I really love about Discovery is the fact that, one, it's Ansible based. So some of the parameters to tweak it should feel familiar to someone who's fluent in Ansible. And it has the ability to gather all that information and it stays in the building. So if you're a customer that's like, I want to review this data to make sure there's no anomalies, no duplicates, no things, being counted that shouldn't be counted, you have full control over that data. And what we've built into tools like Discovery, as well as the satellite inventory plugin, we do have robust ways to redact data you don't care about, or we don't care about more specifically, like your host names. I know you love your host names and a lot of effort went into creating them. I don't care about them. I don't need your host name to count your products for subscription management. I don't need your IP addresses. In fact, one of our customers filed an RFE to redact MAC addresses, which I thought was kind of weird. Right? Like, it's a MAC address, but they feel as though that piece of information is sensitive to them and they don't want to share it with us, and I don't need it, so fine, we'll redact out MAC addresses. That's totally cool. So yeah, for our disconnected customers, their subscription experience is a little different, but we have tools for them as well.
So are there any other odd use cases that we've started to address?
So I think the two big ones are going to be connected versus disconnected, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's really a matter of how much data and how often do I share it with Red Hat. The other, I wouldn't call it an odd use case, but it is a newer use case for us is we've been looking at, registration for the longest time as a per system thing, right? And an admin sits in front of a server and registers the system using a CLI command. And we've improved it a bit, right? You can do registration during install. You can do registration from the web console. You can do registration in a few other places, right? Also, in the near future, we're going to be able to do registration to an Ansible playbook. Ryan Smith is going to keep me absolutely honest on delivering that.
We got the rel system roles mentioned in Eric.
There it is.
Yeah.
Huzzah.
He would not let me get out of his episode without mentioning rel system roles.
I gave him a full episode on it. He still wants to talk about it.
It's good stuff. I mean, if you had rel system roles in your life, you talk about it every day too, right? But yeah, we've historically looked at registration of systems as a per system thing. Even with the system role, it's still by and large a per system thing. So some of the new capabilities that we've introduced, and we started these on the public cloud. These are available today on Amazon, Azure, and to a certain extent on Google. We now have the ability to do fleet level registration, right? So now you can log into the Red Hat console at console.redhat.com. You can connect your Red Hat account to your Amazon account, let's say using like a ARN in the case of Amazon. And by creating a linkage between your Red Hat account and your cloud provider account, you now can ensure that any system that spins up in that Amazon account that's a Red Hat Enterprise Linux system gets connected automatically. No sysadmin has to log in and run a subscription manager register. It happens automatically and transparently underneath the hood, right? And that's really great, especially in larger organizations where you have, lots of users of the cloud resources, and you may not necessarily want to give them logins or even activation keys to connect systems to Red Hat properties. A sysadmin who has, a higher level of privilege can configure that fleet level registration for that entire, cloud provider account. And then you can repeat that process if you have, multiple cloud provider accounts as well. We call that cloud-based auto registration, and that's available today for Amazon, Azure, and to a certain extent for Google. We're not entirely done with the Google work, but that'll be done in the next couple months or so. But that's a new set of capabilities that, when we talk about, again, where we're taking subscription management, kind of some of the more advanced use cases and how are we further simplifying it, like those capabilities are awesome, right? Like, what if I told you you don't ever even have to see Subscription Manager or RHC or any of the client tools again? We just set them up for you. That's a good thing for us to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Rich, I understand you have a couple of demos you want to show us. Should we move on into that and see this in action?
Yeah, let's just go ahead. I'm going to give just a quick demo of just the modern day for registering a system, and then we're going to walk through the console.ui and show some of the UI goodness that we have. So,
and I totally expect to be underwhelmed by these demos.
Yeah,
because this should actually just work.
Yeah, it's subscription non-management. It's kind of our running joke about it. So in this demo here, I have a Red Hat Enterprise Linux 9 system that I just built it from ISO in a virtual machine, and I want to connect it to my Red Hat account. So I'm going to use the RHC command, which became generally available in RHEL 8.6 and 9.0. RHC sets up three things when the system's connected: connects you to content using the old subscription manager stuff, connects you to the insights workflow, as well as it sets up the bi-directional MQTT broker so that you can actually do remediations against the system if you have subscriptions for that. So we're going to connect these CLI options to look familiar to a subscription manager user. We're using organization and activation key, similar to what you would with subscription manager. So I'm just going to go ahead, hit enter, let it do its thing. You can see under the hood, it kind of makes its call to subscription management underneath the hood. It also does the connection to Red Hat Insights. And after that, it's done. Like, that's it. I'm going to install some packages just to prove that I'm not lying to you and this is a real demo once it gets stuff loaded into Insights.
So you don't need to run Insights client or any of that, right? Just this one command and you're done.
Correct. So I can go ahead, now that the system's been connected, I can go ahead and actually click this link and go to the hybrid cloud console, but I'm not going to do that yet. I'm just gonna go ahead and install a package. I know I don't have Vim installed because I'm a horrible person who doesn't have Vim installed. Go ahead and just install the package, right? There's no, I gotta attach a pool. I gotta go disable all the repos first. It's no, connect the RHEL 9 system. We already, by default, we only enable base OS and AppStream, but you just register the system and run, right? Register the system, install the packages that you need. Now, if you need to install some, needed to enable some additional repositories that weren't enabled by default, let's say you wanted to turn on Code Ready Builder, right, which has some optional content in it you may want to use, you would still use Subscription Manager repos to enable those repos. But, to connect the system and get access to base OS and AppStream, one command, and that's the RHC command. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing that real quick. And then I'm going to head over to the Hybrid Cloud console and kind of show you how all that gets put together. Sure.
And I wanted to point out that we spared no expense to get that spinning pipe and the green dot to let you know everything's good. I mean, we went above and beyond for that, didn't we?
All right. So
Subscription Manager doesn't have that. So
now, I mean, we could have added that, but one problem at a time. Okay. So underneath the hood, what we did was, to set up this demo. It was a pretty easy demo for me to set up. I came over to Hybrid Cloud console. I created an activation key, and that's under settings, under activation keys. And you need to have permissions to create activation keys, but all users can read them. The activation key is something that you use in lieu of a username and password in order to connect the system. So you don't have to bake usernames and passwords into your automation. So what I did was I created activation key. I'm just going to call it foo. Select a role, right? A role is basically what workload's running on that system. By selecting the role, it enables Subscription Watch to better count that system. Right? If you tell us it's a RHEL server, we'll count it like a RHEL server. This is important because in RHEL 8 and 9, there's only one set of content for RHEL. We no longer have different install media for workstation, server, or compute. So you may want to note to us that it's a workstation or a server. You also, if you omit role, you're fine. Like it'll just affect your reporting, but it won't affect anything functionally. But I usually build server, so I build a server. You pick your SLA, same thing. I'm going to pick premium. And then you pick your usage type. Is this a development usage system or a production usage system? And then hit create, right? And then once that's done, you have a fully functioning activation key. In the future, we're still expanding our capabilities on activation keys. So in the future, we are going to expand activation keys. So you can also do things like enable non-default repositories. So let's say you wanted to register a system and say, on all of the systems that I need for this workload, I need to enable Code Ready Builder, or I need to enable maybe the .NET repositories or something. You can define that in the activation key and apply that when those systems are registered. Okay. So activation keys are really cool. They used to exist in access.redhat.com. This is one of the functionalities we brought over to console. And we also, as we brought these functionalities over, we added new capabilities like system purpose, those role, SLA, and usage. And we also took out capabilities, which you notice that there was no way to attach an entitlement to an activation key. You don't need to do that anymore when you have simple content access enabled. So now that I have, that system registered via RHC, I can go over, I'm just going to do a quick look in inventory. That system should show up right at the top of the list because I just registered it. I can manage it through the various Insights applications. It's a fully patched RHEL system, so it probably won't have any Insights advisories applicable to it. But now I can go ahead and manage the system using any of those awesome Insights apps that I have. I also, now that this system exists in inventory, it'll also be counted in Subscription Watch reporting when Subscription Watch reporting runs nightly. So speaking of Subscription Watch, you can go over to SubWatch today and take a look at the usage of Red Hat products. In this case, I'm looking at RHEL. And what I can see here is I can pick any of these days, go back to like the 14th, and I can see on that particular day, I had 56 sockets of RHEL in use, physical RHEL in use, 5 sockets of virtualized RHEL, which currently includes hypervisor RHEL, as well as standalone virtual machines. We're going to break those apart in the future. And I have 6 sockets of RHEL running on the public cloud, and that's below my subscription threshold of 112. So what that generally tells me is that I still have capacity to deploy more RHEL workloads, until I get to my dotted green line. And what I'd also can do is I can scroll down in my inventory and I can see, well, what systems in inventory today are going to be used to generate the charts at the end of the day, and where are they running? You can see we do cloud identification for AWS, Azure, Google, IBM SoftLayer, as well as Alibaba. So you can even see on which clouds are those virtual machines running. In the case of a hypervisor, I can expand a hypervisor. Actually, it'll be under virtual. Down here, I can expand the hypervisor and I can see what guests are running on the hypervisor as well. And it makes it easy for me to, one, figure out my topology, and two, answer questions like, should we be purchasing RHEL VDC for this system or not? Well, it may depend on the number of guests that are installed. I also have the ability in Subscription Watch to filter the usage. And this is one of the big changes in subscription management that we've made. We've gone away from a world where you count entitlements that are based upon your ability to attach entitlements. Like it's crazy, because if you attach the entitlements incorrectly, you won't have correct reporting. So let's move entitlement counting to the side and actually let's count the actual product usage based upon, the products that are installed as well as the metadata that you provide. So remember how on that activation key, we set the usage type to production? I can also go into Subscription Watch and I can filter my usage of Red Hat products by that production usage type. And that actually filters not only the inventory. You can see I only have 2 sockets of physical RHEL that are tagged as production. I only have 110 sockets of RHEL that is tagged as production as well. So what Subscription Watch gives you the ability to do is to look at the fleet as a whole, start slicing and dicing that fleet based upon various things. You can slice and dice by usage type. You can also slice and dice by SLA. And then lastly, you can come over to the left-hand side and you can slice and dice by architecture as well. So if you're using ARM or RHEL for Power or RHEL for Z, you might want to look at them differently because, generally Red Hat charges different price points for the various architectures. You can also see down here that if you're an OpenShift user, you can go ahead and hit the OpenShift subscriptions button. I'm not going to hit it, but that'll take you over to a similar representation of your OpenShift usage for OpenShift Container Platform, yearly subscriptions, as well as the pay-as-you-go. The other thing that we brought over from RHSM in access.redhat.com is we brought over the subscription inventory. And this is a relatively new feature. We rolled this out about a month or so ago, but we wanted to bring over the inventory of all the subscriptions you own, right? You should be able to go to a place, take a look at all the subscriptions you own, which ones are active, which ones are expiring or expiring soon, and be able to drill into those subscriptions and find out more information about them. Let's say if I look at the, developer for individual subscription, I'll see that it has, self-support, has a capacity of 128 sockets. And, we're still building this out. So you'll also start to see things like how many of these subscriptions we have, what contract numbers they have, like that information's coming. But as you can see, we're kind of like, doing a lift and shift of a lot of the access.redhat.com functionality. And the last thing I wanted to show is the manifest support. So for our connected satellite customers, you have the ability to come over to console.redhat.com, create a new manifest, enable simple content access or not, download that manifest into your satellite server, and then manage the subscriptions that are in that manifest to power that satellite server that you have. So you now have, all of these capabilities that, in many cases used to exist in access.redhat.com. They've been picked up, moved, reimagined where necessary to fit into a new world where subscriptions are not required to be generally attached to things. So that's really just a quick demo I wanted to give you. Things you should take away are, if you're a connected customer, whether it's a connected satellite customer or a connected RHSM customer, almost all of your stuff is already in console.redhat.com. If you are wanting to connect systems to Red Hat, you're running RHEL 8.6 or above or RHEL 9.0 or above, use the RHC command. Simple command, get you connected to all the stuff. And then the third thing that I want you to take away is enable simple content access if you haven't already. And if that doesn't work out for you, feel more than free to reach out to us and give us feedback. I don't know if Eric, you want to cover this, but if you want to email my product management team directly, we are available at smx@redhat.com, Sierra Mike X-ray @redhat.com. That'll get you in touch with one of the subscription PMs. Or if you have any like issues with a traditional, I need to open up a case for a variety, feel more than free to open up a Red Hat support case, and our pals over in support will do the awesomeness they always do and get you taken care of.
It sounds like you've given this that particular CTA before.
Maybe. I mean, from my team's perspective, I mean, we absolutely, love getting down in the trenches with the people who use our technology and empower you to be successful with Red Hat stuff. And, we like to make ourselves available so that if you do have, feedback, whether, good or bad, just be gentle. But we'll take that feedback, and honestly, a lot of the feedback that we got directly from our customers and partners are why we overhauled the subscription experience, right? Like, to take this full circle to what I talked about, at the beginning of the call, like we asked y'all in 2019, like what parts of the experience are great and which parts are not great, and y'all gave us some hard-hitting information, and we acted upon it. Some future things that we're really looking at doing is we're looking at getting better at defining useful groupings, right? Which is a thing that's kind of a pervasive challenge across many Red Hat tools, right? Because ultimately, like, our customers group themselves in departments, teams, or workloads, or projects, whatever the term is you use. And you buy subscriptions in many cases to empower those teams to do a certain task. And one of the challenges we've always had across all the Red Hat tools, right? The customer portal, classic Red Hat network, satellite, like all of them, is that grouping systems together so that people can, work on them without having like really, really hard partitions between them has been something we haven't done particularly great. So that's like one of the next areas where we're looking to take not just subscription management, but like systems management as well. Because a common use case we hear from our customers is, I want to be able to track usage of Red Hat products by department, right? And that's not an unreasonable request, but it is something that we've struggled with, because in the past, subscriptions were tied very strictly to systems, and systems don't necessarily represent departments.
Mm-hmm. So chat's been awfully quiet today. I think a lot of folks are still on vacation, but Brian, did you have anything you wanted to bring up before we wrap?
No, mainly just want to say, thanks so much to Rich and the rest of the team on your incredible work. Like, you have really made this whole process so much simpler. And so just thank you so much to you and the team. This is awesome work, and keep up the great work.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of people who work on this. I mean, I'll give shout outs to lots of folks, right? Christian Marino, who's the PM for the Insights family of tools. Like, he's my battle buddy when it comes to a lot of this stuff, right? Dan Ozdowski and Justin Kraft, those are some PMs on my team who work on the subscription stuff. I mean, there's a few other folks, the Anaconda team, the Cockpit team. There's so many places you can connect a RHEL system, right? Like, it's so pervasive, and it's so many different places that, like, I can't even think about like how many teams I'd have to thank, right? I mean, my own engineering teams, right? The Candlepin team, the subscription manager team, the VirtWho team, Team NATO, who does a lot of my hosted subscription management tooling. Like, it's a lot of people. I probably say it's easily, 200 to 300 people that have, put some hard work into, making the subscription management experience, better for our customers and partners. And I'd be remiss if I didn't, recognize all of them for all the hard work that they've done.
So if you left anybody out and they watch this, just drag them onto the show with you next time.
I'm in the RDU office right now, so if I forgot anybody, I might not make it out of the building alive. But I think I covered all the folks. I mean, it is honestly, it's hard work, and sometimes it seems like it's, you got to move it a little bit at a time. It doesn't seem like it's moving that fast, but Ultimately our goal is to make it so that our customers and partners are successful with Red Hat technologies. And, the work that we do is absolutely instrumental in making that happen. And I'm happy to be part of that team.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I know that as one of the RHEL technical marketers, you and I work very closely on a number of different initiatives, and it's always a pleasure to hang out and chat. And you always have some sort of subscription war story to share, and it's just like, yeah, I can see that from my days as a sysadmin, and now that there's a solution, now that we've got a direction, there's so much more that we can do with tools like Insights and simple content access. I mean, those two things alone have completely changed how we talk and look at getting RHEL up and running.
Yeah, it's all good stuff.
Well, folks, that brings us to the top of the hour. Sorry, we got a little bit late start, but internet will do what internet does, and today it didn't want to do what the internet's supposed to do. So, thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for joining us and hanging out with us for the full hour. We really appreciate the interaction in chat, and hopefully those of you that missed us live will join us again in 2 weeks. RHEL Presents comes to you every 2 weeks live on YouTube and Twitch. I believe next week we will have a first on the show. I believe we have one of our partners bringing one of their technical engineers on to talk with us. We haven't finalized that, so I will leave the tease at that. So if you're curious to see who's going to come hang out with us, definitely check us out on Twitter at RHEL. You can tag the show at hashtag RHEL Presents. Definitely go through go click all the things, hit the subscribe button so you get more content like this. Be sure to like this episode, share it with a friend, and leave us a comment. I know Brian and I are pretty adamant about checking the comments throughout the week to make sure that we answer your questions, especially Mr. Rich Jerrido. He's active on Twitter. The SMX email will be in the show notes as well, so check for that here within the next couple of hours. The show notes get uploaded later on. So, Rich, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciated it. Great tour, and like Iron Sysadmin said, definitely learned something every time you and I talk. So, with that said, on behalf of... Oh, go ahead. I
was going to say, yeah, just thanks for having me. I love the opportunity to come hang out with you guys, and, it's fun.
Awesome. So on behalf of our guest, Rich Jerrido, on behalf of my co-host, Brian Smith, and the entire Red Hat Enterprise Linux team, I'm Eric the IT Guy Hendricks, and I will see you all live on Friday for Into the Terminal. We'll be talking about GPG keys. But until then, take care, and we'll see you around the internet. Thanks all.
Thanks, Rich.
Bye, y'all.